watching The Buck Stops Here and I'm Barkhadat. On the program this evening, the big story is coming out of the Sangh Parivar, and this time it's the comments of the RSS chief, Mohan Bhagwat, that have literally set the cat among the pigeons. The RSS chief, speaking at a function in Orissa, referred to all Indians as Hindus and said that whatever be your religion, whatever be your faith, whatever you believe in, Indians everywhere are known as Hindus. Is this casting a shadow on the development pitch through the election campaign that the Modi government tried to present? Or is this a turf war within the Sangh Parivar? That big debate will be coming up at 9:25 in the program tonight.
कितनी सरल बात है भाई, जर्मन लोगों का जर्मनी है, इंग्लिश लोगों का इंग्लैंड है, अमेरिकन लोगों का अमेरिका है, हिंदुस्तान किसका है? हिंदुस्तानी लोग, इस देश के सब लोग हिंदू हैं।
That debate coming up, but first our top story this evening. As an angry Chief Justice of India defended the current system, the collegium system of choosing judges, the government went ahead with its new Judicial Appointments Bill. The contradiction and the juxtaposition was interesting. This is the second time. The first of course was Gopal Subramaniam. This time it is Justice Manjunath of Karnataka that has seen the government and the judiciary disagreeing. But in a spirited rebuttal, the Chief Justice argued that much of the reporting was an attempt to defame the judiciary. He also argued that if the collegium system was a failure, then he, along with every other judge, was a failure as well. But on this very day, the government went ahead and tabled the new Judicial Appointments Bill. On the Buck Stops Here this evening, we explore the battle, the seeming battle between the government and the judiciary. But there's a deeper question. Obviously, politicians should not have too much control and too much say in who a judge should be. But can judges be their own jury? Let's look at the developments today by introducing our panel. We're joined now by Justice Sodhi. He's of course a former judge of the Delhi High Court. From the Congress, we're joined by Abhishek Singhvi. He's of course a senior lawyer, but he's also a senior spokesperson of the Congress party. Joining us tonight from Chandigarh from the BJP is somebody who again is both a lawyer and a senior leader of the BJP. We have Satpal Jain of the BJP. And also joining me from Delhi tonight, Prashant Bhushan, once again a senior advocate and a founding member of the Aam Aadmi Party. I'd like to start with you, Prashant Bhushan, because you have in a sense been one of the preeminent voices when it comes to corruption in the judiciary. What do you make of the Chief Justice's very angry defense of the collegium system today, and also a reasonably angry defense of Justice Manjunath, making the point that there has been misreporting, the collegium never recommended his promotion as Chief Justice of the Punjab and Haryana High Court, it was simply a transfer recommendation. Do you think the Chief Justice's comments, Prashant, change the debate in any way?
No, I don't think that the Chief Justice was defending Justice Manjunath. He was just pointing out that contrary to the media reports, Manjunath was not being recommended for being appointed as Chief Justice. He had merely been transferred from Karnataka to Chandigarh. Now, regarding his other remarks about the collegium system and this attack on the collegium system, etc., or what he said was the attack on the judiciary itself. You see, much of this has emanated from an insider from the judicial system, that is Justice Kardju.
Yes.
For the first time, an insider like Justice Kardju has spoken out about what he saw from inside,
yes,
about incorrect people being appointed, corrupt people not being removed from office, on the basis that any action against corrupt judges would lead to defamation of the judiciary.
But using what Justice
Kardju,
but
that
Prashant
would lead
Bhushan,
to loss of public confidence.
But Prashant Bhushan, using Justice Kardju's own blog today as an example, he speaks of how even judges who are known to be mired in allegation continue to serve. Now, if Justice Manjunath is seen to be too contentious for a promotion, then some would argue he is too contentious for a transfer as well.
No, transfer is not, it's just a lateral transfer. Sometimes transfer is also done for punitive reasons, but this is not for punitive reasons. Of course, there are very serious allegations against Justice Manjunath, same as the allegations that were against Justice Dinakaran. And in my view, he is fit to be impeached, and we have prepared an impeachment motion against him. However, you see,
you have prepared an impeachment motion against Justice. Just to confirm, you've prepared an impeachment motion against Justice Manjunath. Do you have the support?
Yes.
Do you have the support of other members of Parliament? Because the Aam Aadmi Party does not have a sizable representation inside Parliament. So, do you have the support of other parties?
I think on this, on this issue, we will get the support of most of the political parties, because it's a identical case like the case of Justice Dinakaran, of disproportionate assets, of conflicts of interest while deciding his cases, etc.
Let me just
But the important issue is, the important issue today is that while it is important for the true state of affairs regarding the judiciary, regarding corruption in the judiciary or improper appointments being made, this needs to come out in the public so that people have a good idea of what's really happening.
Let me bring in Abhishek Singhvi.
This should not be used.
Yes.
This should not be used as an instrument by the executive to get their foot in and have an important control in the matter of judicial appointments. That would compromise the independence of the judiciary and would be against public interest.
I must get Abhishek Singhvi and Satpal Jain in now. Abhishek Singhvi, where is that middle space between no political meddling but the judiciary not being its own jury? Justice Karju has targeted the previous UPA government in his attack as well. Some of those allegations, you're familiar with them, very serious, going all the way up to the Prime Minister himself when it came to a judge of the Madras High Court. What do you make of A, the Chief Justice's comments today, and B, the simultaneous decision of the government to go ahead with a slightly altered Judicial Appointments Bill from the one your government sought to bring?
Barka, first and foremost, I was in court when this happened, and possibly Prashant Bhushan was also there. We were opposing each other in another matter. The Chief Justice was basically focused on a narrower issue, that a person who has filed a PIL on the Manjunath issue should have taken care to examine the facts and find out that in fact Manjunath had not been proposed for a Chief Justiceship. So he was really expressing his ire at the well-intentioned petitioner that he should have known the facts, and there is therefore nothing in your petition, and therefore we are dismissing it. Number two, is therefore a pure coincidence that today itself the bill was introduced in the lower house. The Chief Justice was thirdly not in any manner saying that there is absolutely no basis for a new bill or a change, nor was he saying blanket wise that everybody under the collegium is good. I think what the sentiment was that you had to hasten slowly and carefully. Now the fourth and the most important point, Barkha, is that obviously if in the process of reforming the system, and I unequivocally think a reform is needed, you end up having judges under the influence of the executive, then you're going to have a situation where the remedy is far, far worse than the disease.
But do you see this?
So ironically, the National Judicial Commission, ironically, Barkha, the National Judicial Commission is supposed to be that via media, because you had earlier executive primacy 100%. You now have almost 100% judicial primacy.
I was going
to
ask
you. So this is supposed to be the middle way.
Okay.
Now I am saying you have to handle it very carefully.
Can I interrupt and ask you a question? And then I want to get Mr. Jain in on that. Is there an impression of the government and the judiciary being locked in battle? We have seen them now, the collegium and the government disagreeing on two judges or two potential judges. One was of course Gopal Subramaniam, and there are two sides of the to the debate on that. And now there is Justice Manjunath, where the government did send the file back. Even on the transfer, the government did send the file back to the collegium. Do you think this disagreement between the collegium and the government is healthy?
No, I think you are right as far as the point about a disagreement on the Gopal Subramaniam case being extremely unhealthy, not only for the judiciary and the government, but for the system as a whole. I have written about it. I have been openly critical of it. I think it's a clear assault on the independence of the judiciary. It should never have happened. Having said that, I don't think you should link it with other cases, or with, most importantly, I don't think you link it to the National Judicial Commission bill. It's an idea whose time has come. But we must be clear that we should not go into starry-eyed accountability theories which completely impinge on the independence of the judiciary.
Let me get
I think there are issues there. The Congress party has not yet seen in full import the bill. In principle, I can tell you here and now on your program that in principle we can't be opposed because it was our idea broadly. But the nitty-gritty, the devil and the God both lies in the detail, and we need to see those details a little more carefully.
Now, Satpal Jain, you've heard both the Aam Aadmi Party and the Congress spokespeople. Both of them are senior lawyers as well, just like yourself. When you hear Prashant Bhushan saying that there is a basis to actually move an impeachment motion against Justice Manjunath, would the BJP, would the Congress, let me start with the BJP, would you support such an impeachment motion? Do you believe that the disagreement between the government and the collegium on this particular judge is that serious?
See, let me make 2 points very clear. So far as the conveying the sentiments or the information with one of the two, either the executive or the judiciary to the other is concerned, it is visualized in the system itself. If you go through the judgment of the Supreme Court has gone to this extent that if the government has any information, maybe based on IB or otherwise, about any person who is being proposed as a judge of the High Court or Supreme Court, it has every right to convey that information to the Chief Justice. And the Supreme Court itself recorded a finding that Chief Justice alone would not take a decision. He will share this information with the collegium, and if the collegium reiterates its recommendation, the government is bound to accept it. So therefore, it is taking things too far to say that there is a confrontation because simply we are disagreeing with the government.
No, but this is the second judge.
This has been happening earlier also. On a number of occasions this has been happening.
Mr. Jain, this is the second judge on which the government and the collegium, maybe they're entirely different cases. I'm not conflating them. I'm simply saying the fact of the matter is this is the second judge on which the collegium and the government of the day has disagreed. Is that disagreement healthy for the process in which we choose our judges, Satpal Jain?
Yes. See, if you go in detail of the second case, it was an honorable judge of the Supreme Court who had written a letter as reported by various sections about the conduct of the Justice Manjunath. So this information came to the government, and the government sent the file back to the collegium to say whether you have considered this letter written by a judge of the Supreme Court itself, who may become the Chief Justice after 2-3 years. So there was nothing wrong and no motive could be ascribed to the government in sending that file back. In fact, the government performed its legal, moral and propriety duty while sending that information back to the collegium. And if the collegium says no, in spite of all that, we reiterate our recommendation, government will have to accept it. That is the law.
Now, Justice Sodhi, please explain one thing to our viewers as a former judge. If a judge is considered, if the land scam allegations, for example, against Justice Manjunath in this case are considered serious enough to not promote him, as the Chief Justice has clarified, then Justice Karju in his blog today is talking about another judge where he's saying that despite the Chief Justice of the time, Justice Kapadia, being aware of the allegations, he was allowed to continue. So as an ordinary citizen, I'm not able to understand this. We think a particular judge might be too contentious, too controversial, not clean enough to be a Chief Justice, but it's okay for him to be a judge. Justice Sodhi, please explain this.
You know, it all depends upon the material that is available with the Chief Justice to take a decision of whatever nature it is. Now, he may have material that he is not fit to lead a high court, but certainly can continue as a judge since there is no serious allegation against him regarding his moral turpitude or whatsoever.
But you know, you have Prashant Bhushan here talking about an impeachment, moving a possible impeachment motion against
that's Prashant Bhushan. No, but that's Prashant Bhushan. Prashant Bhushan, you know, can say lots of things, but I do not have the material, so which he has. So I don't want to get into an argument with him on that.
But do you believe, Justice Sodhi, Justice Sodhi, do you believe that there is a confrontation that is growing, that the timing, the government brings in a Judicial Appointments Bill, all the political representatives on this panel this evening believe its time has come, and the model seems to be some representation from the executive, some representation from the judiciary, some eminent jurists or citizens. Is that an acceptable model, Justice Sodhi?
See, no, not to me.
Why not?
I would have suggested that the collegium system itself can be reformed in a manner so as to plug the loopholes which are evident.
So you're saying it doesn't
For
need
example,
a dramatic overhaul, it just needs
transparency.
reform. You're saying
No,
it doesn't need to be
no,
scrapped,
yeah.
it needs reform. That's what I'm hearing you saying.
Yeah.
Okay, let me take this to
That's
Abhishek
right,
Singhvi and
that's
Prashant Bhushan. Let me take this back to the politicians. Abhishek Singhvi, first very quickly from you, neither you nor Satpal Jain answered directly the question over whether your parties believe the Justice Manjunath case is a case fit for an impeachment motion. So Abhishek, to you first and then to Satpal Jain on just this limited point.
No, I don't think.
Yes.
I don't think my party in any manner as a political party is interested in moving an impeachment motion, because A, we don't have the full facts, and I don't think it's something on which we need to meddle. At the moment there is only a proposal to transfer him,
yes,
and there is nothing which requires an impeachment motion at the moment.
Okay.
However, if anybody else moves it, to what extent we will support it or not will depend on the evidence produced, which
yes,
I certainly am not privy to, except in some stray manner in the newspapers.
Satpal Jain, would you endorse that, or does the BJP have a more fully formed view on this, considering it was your government that sent the file back on Justice Manjunath?
Till this moment, nobody has contacted us, approached us with any material or with any proposal that they are going to move any impeachment motion against Justice Manjunath in the Parliament, either Lok Sabha or Rajya Sabha. Our party has not at all considered any move, and I don't think that party is in any mood to move any impeachment motion against Justice Manjunath, because we have not been informed of all those facts which makes it necessary for any party to move an impeachment motion. However, in case some people, some persons or political parties or individuals, they bring all that material to us, party will consider that on merits as and when this information is brought to our notice. At this moment, to my knowledge, there is no move on the part of the BJP to move any impeachment motion.
Let me get last comments from all of you on the whole debate around who should appoint the judges. Prashant Bhushan, Justice Sodhi is making the argument that you can reform the system from within, that anything else might become a euphemism for political interference.
You see, when the government used to appoint the judges,
yes,
there was heavy politicization of the judiciary. Therefore, in order to protect the independence of the judiciary, the Supreme Court took over this power of appointment to itself. While this taking over of this power by the courts did lead to depoliticization of the judiciary to a reasonable extent, however, it did not end arbitrary and nepotistic appointments, nor was there any transparency in this collegium system of appointments. Now, if you want to deal with these problems, you have to set up a full-time independent judicial commission, not an ex officio body consisting of 3 judges, law minister, 2 eminent persons appointed by the government and leader of opposition, etc. This is not going to be able to do this job. For this, you require people who have the time to devote to this important and onerous task of appointing 100 judges every year, comparing the nominees on a criteria, on an explicit criteria which is laid out, comparative merit, etc.
You don't think the BJP model in the new bill is an acceptable one, Mr. Bhushan?
Not at all, because it has 2 flaws. One, it gives a veto power to the government over appointments, which is totally wrong. While the government's inputs can be considered, but the government should have no direct say in appointing judges. That will to some extent compromise the independence of the judiciary. What we have been saying is that we need a totally independent constitutional body like the CAG or the Election Commission, which should be a full-time body tasked with only this job of selecting and appointing judges of the higher judiciary. We have proposed a model of how such a body could be selected. This can be selected in a broad-based way.
Okay. Let me just get quick responses. Abhishek Singhvi, Prashant Bhushan says this model, neither the UPA's nor the NDA's model is actually an acceptable model. It gives the government too much of a leg in.
You know, if you look carefully, there's a dilemma here, and I don't think it's been worked out by Prashant's model. You had executive primacy, you had judicial primacy.
Yes.
So obviously a third model must have a mix of both.
Yes.
So first point is the mix has to be there. Second point is the mix proposed now fair or is it overly inclined?
He's
I
just
think
saying the government cannot have a veto.
answer?
The government can't have a veto power.
No, let me
the
answer.
Government can have an input,
I
not
understand.
a veto
I understand.
Power. Yeah.
No. You see, there's not a veto power in that sense, and I'm not agreeing with all parts of the bill. But the two members of the independent experts are not necessarily government. They are going to be eminent jurists, and I don't think they are going to be puppets of the government. Third and most important, this full-time thing which he has talked about elsewhere also, it would be nice if we could have it, but I don't think it's practical. You cannot have external elements, totally external, eminent people, a retired CAG, a retired EC, selecting judges or supposedly eminent citizens. You will then be accused of taking the thing totally outside the system. Now, you cannot find a full-time body except of retired judges or of retired CAGs. Now, I am not sure whether you can have that body of retired people selecting Supreme Court judges.
Okay, Justice Sodhi,
on a full-time basis. So there is a problem there.
Justice Sodhi, what do you think? Before I ask Satpal Jain to talk a little bit about his government's bill, what do you think? You're hearing you see, what's happened is, as Abhishek says, we've gone from executive primacy to judicial primacy. There has to be some space in the middle.
See, that space in the middle, I was suggesting that every High Court has a select committee. And that select committee can be of eminent people, can be of jurists, and can be from members of the bar, can be of a broad base. It is that body which from each state selects its judges and sends it for approval to the collegium. And that collegium sends it to a similar select committee in the Supreme Court. And after the select committee of the Supreme Court goes through it, which is as broad based as possible, it goes back to the collegium, and collegium forwards it to the president, and the work is done. Thereafter, there is no question of executive raising any objections. All objections have to be raised at the time of selection.
Okay, quick last
selection committees, no more.
Quick last word from Satpal Jain on this. Satpal Jain. How is it possible to give the government any kind of veto power? I think there Prashant Bhushan makes the right point that like in the current system, the government will give an input, but the eventual decision has to belong, if not to the judiciary, to an independent commission.
See, during the last 6-7 decades, India has seen two different patterns for the appointment of the judges.
Yes.
One was where the executive had the final total say in the appointment of judges. Second was where the final word rests with the judiciary.
Yes.
Now, with the consensus of almost all the political parties, especially the legal luminaries in this field, belonging to different political parties, I am not saying with unanimity, but by and large consensus, a third model is being evolved. I am saying we have all expectations. There may be certain apprehensions also, but let us give a trial to this third system also, where again the supremacy lies with the judiciary. Out of the composition of the total the Judicial Commission, 3 or 4 members will be the senior most judges of the Supreme Court. 2 eminent jurists, as Abhishek Manu Singhvi rightly said, they can't be termed as the nominee of the government, maybe any government, any party's government.
But should they
and
have
the
a
government
veto
will have
power?
only one nominee, that is the law minister,
Mr. Jain,
who otherwise also has a say.
Should they
So
have a
therefore,
veto
let's
power?
give a trial to this system.
Should they have a veto power? Because tomorrow if the
No
government
question of veto power when 6 of them, 4 judges of the Supreme Court are sitting, 2 eminent jurists are sitting. I don't think any person will just veto because he wants to veto it. The appointment will be by and large with the consensus. And I once again say, there may be many apprehensions also, but there are expectations also. Let us give a trial to this system. And if ultimately it is found that there are some flaws,
yes,
or Mr.
quickly,
Sodhi
Abhishek, I got
suggests,
yes,
they can always be considered.
One sentence.
They are still in the system of
yes, Abhishek.
I have no doubt that every system depends on how you operate it.
Yeah.
But consider, what is the alternative? You are giving all these objections to the proposed commission. No doubt there could be problems. But today, in the completely behind doors and curtains, when 3 or 5 judges sit and decide without any transparency, any accountability, frequently on personal whims and caprices.
Yes.
They luckily get it right 70% times, but 30% times it is done on personal likes and dislikes, on bargaining, which is the you have to think of alternatives. It's a question of what best you can get, not the ideal world.
Well, I think we need a larger
The alternative is not so great either.
Well, I think the fact is we need more of the bill to come out into the public domain for it to be debated freely. And I think there are important questions being raised over how much power the government representatives on this panel should have. We leave it there. Justice Sodhi, Abhishek Singhvi, Prashant Bhushan, Satpal Jain, thank you so much for joining us on the buck stops here on a day when the judiciary and the government seem to be locked in a fresh confrontation. Moving on now to our big debate this evening. And as we've been saying, Mohan Bhagwat's words, that's the RSS chief of course, have set the veritable cat among the pigeons. The RSS chief is talking about all Indians' cultural identity being Hindu. He's also giving a message to Modi in a separate speech saying the victory was not a one-man show. Is the RSS raining on Narendra Modi's parade already?
इस ज्ञान के आधार पर आज भी भारतीय बनकर चलने वाले लोगों को सारी दुनिया हिंदू कहती है और उन लोगों को भी हिंदू कहने से समझ में आता है, इसलिए भारतवर्ष का स्व क्या है? हिंदू है। और कितनी सरल बात है भाई, जर्मन लोगों का जर्मनी है, इंग्लिश लोगों का इंग्लैंड है, अमेरिकन लोगों का अमेरिका है, हिंदुस्तान किसका है? हिंदुस्तानी लोग, इस देश के सब लोग हिंदू है।
Have the comments made by the RSS chief embarrassed the BJP that insisted through the election campaign that its motto was only development for all? Is this about a larger turf war within the Sangh Parivar? Remember, in a separate speech, Mohan Bhagwat also spoke about the election not being a one-man show, not being one man's victory. Was that a message to Mr. Modi? Let's introduce our panel this evening. From the BJP, we have here with us a senior leader and spokesperson of the party, Jayant Sinha. Also with me in the studio is Ashish Nandi, well-known sociologist and author. From the Congress, we're joined by Lok Sabha Member of Parliament, Shashi Tharoor, and Professor Rakesh Sinha of Delhi University will be with us in just a moment as well. Let me give the first word to the opposition in this case. Shashi Tharoor is somebody who admired Mr. Modi for his first few decisions and said that he was striking all the right notes. What do you make of the RSS comments today that all Indians, when it comes to their cultural identity, are effectively Hindu?
Well, I think Mr. Bhagwat is wrong on at least three distinct counts, Barka, and the first, in fact, is the confirmation that the RSS's mentality is still stuck in the late 19th, early 20th century. There was a time when, for example, in the French language, the word for Indian was indeed Hindu, spelled H-I-N-D-O-U, Hindu, because indeed in a couple of languages, everybody living east of the Indus was called a Hindu. But once India became independent, took on a constitution calling itself India, that is Bharat.
Yes.
No one uses that anymore. Even in French now it's Indien. Second problem is, of course, the constitution of India itself. When you've actually got Bharat as the name of the country, you can speak of people living in Bharat being Bharatvasis, you can't call them Hindus.
Yeah.
And third and most significant is indeed this communal message that Mr. Bhagwat's statement sends, because we all understand the word Hindu to refer to people of a particular religious persuasion. And the signal it sends that this is a country where the only first-class citizens are people who identify themselves as Hindus, and that everybody else lives here on the sufferance of Mr. Bhagwat's view of Hinduism is not only a travesty, is not only wrong constitutionally, it sends a very dangerous political signal in a country which we are trying to keep united, pluralist, and of course harmonious. I don't think Mr. Modi heading government wants to have actually an important political ally throwing the cat among the pigeons and essentially creating uncertainty amongst minority populations in this country, creating the potential for more conflict and disagreement. I don't think he's doing the government that he has so far helped bring to power any favors.
Jayant Sinha, I think Shashi Tharoor makes two or three very strong arguments. One is that there's a factual problem with the etymology of the word Hindu when you locate it within Hindustan. And that is that the word Hindu, as Shashi has already explained, derived from the Sanskrit word Sindhu. It referred to the people who lived beyond the Indus River. It's actually a Persian word in at least part of its origins. So to conflate Hindustan or Hindustani with Hindus is factually incorrect, and it is certainly in the minds of many, many people a communal statement to make, because what are you telling the Muslims, the Christians, the Sikhs and the other faiths of this country? Has this remark embarrassed the BJP?
Well, we have said consistently, Barkha, that our goal is sabka saath, Sabka Vikas. So let's be very clear about that.
Because of that has this comment
and our Prime Minister has said that India is our religion and the Constitution is the holy book. So we are very, very clear in terms of how we think about these issues. You know, I have tremendous respect for Shashi, but I have found that when it comes to this discussion, he sadly always takes it into the gutter and reduces it to the level of name calling, which I think is not.
What is he said that is gutter level, as you call it?
I absolutely think, because I think there is a very serious and important discussion to be had here, and which he himself has been a long time participant in, and that is the question of what is the idea of India as such. And we can have a very good debate and discussion about that. But to say that, you know, what Bhagwat Ji spoke about today is about religion, and therefore it is violating the way we think about India and violating the Constitution, and it is politically dangerous and all the other things that he said, I think is taking it into the gutter. Because
what did the comment mean to you?
That's why,
okay, if you believe Shashi Tharoor took it to the gutter,
yes, he did.
Let me ask you, what does it mean to you when the RSS chief, no less, says that all the people of India, चाहे वो किसी की भी पूजा करते हो, he also says that चाहे उनके कुछ भी रीति रिवाज हो, वो दुनिया भर में हिंदू ही जाने जाते हैं. If Shashi has taken it to the gutter, as you said, what does his comment mean to you?
So let's elevate it from the gutter and the stench of the gutter, right? Shashi is a very literate man, as is Professor Nandi, a very erudite, of course. So what's in a name? That by which a rose can smell a sweet. So let's lift it from the gutter and let's talk about what we are really discussing here, and which is the culture of India. And if you use Hinduism, or the word Hindu, sorry, excuse me, what I meant to say was, if you use the word Hindu not to denote a religion, which is consistently what Mohan Bhagwat Ji has done, consistently what the RSS has done, then we do share a common religion. Which of us would object to that? We do share a common religion.
And I say that a common religion, if he had said a common religion is Indianness, wouldn't that have been a different argument from a common
that's
religion
because
is
you are,
Hinduism?
that is precisely why I said you're taking it back into the gutter. Because you're taking a label and you're denoting it to mean a religion when it actually means a culture.
I think the question, and I'll come back to Shashi Tharoor in just a moment, but Professor Rakesh Sinha,
please,
question,
I'm itching to answer.
Okay, Shashi, give me half a second. Jayant Sinha says that this remark by RSS chief Mohan Bhagwat is being misunderstood, that he is basically talking about a cultural identity, but a number of people would say, why does that cultural identity have to be located within the context of a religion, especially when the word Hindu in Hindustan actually doesn't refer to Hinduism? How do you read it?
I think Bharka, you just answered your question right
before
there.
Coming to that question,
yes,
I believe that he described Bhagwat Ji's statement as gutter.
No, he didn't. He said Shashi Tharoor's comments on it.
No, Shashi Tharoor said gutter.
No. Jayant Sinha was calling Shashi Tharoor's comments, taking it. So this was not an attack on the RSS chief. It was an attack on Mr. Tharoor, and he will defend himself shortly.
Okay.
Yeah.
Look, the RSS chief.
I intend to. Shall I do so right now?
No, I'll just let him complete his
RSS chief Mohan Bhagwat Ji, in tradition of RSS ideology, he described the Hindu term as a geocultural identity. It is geocultural. The term Hindu has been used for the people who lived in a particular land. And
beyond the Indus River or the Sindhu River.
Yes, in course of the time. In course of the time. In thousands of years of history of Hindu civilization and culture, this nation, this modern Indian state, which was formed in 1947 or in 19th century, before that, this nation has a big, long history of civilization and culture, and the Hindu is the only term which unravels the continuity of the civilization and culture as a nation.
Professor Sinha, if you were Muslim or Christian or Sikh or Buddhist in this country today, what would you feel about being told that culturally you are all Hindu?
Yes, they are culturally Hindu.
How do you say that?
If Indonesian Muslims are culturally Hindu, if they are not feeling anything contempt, then why Indian Muslims should feel?
Let me get Shashi and then I'll come to you, Professor Nandi. Shashi Tharoor, you've heard the perspective from both Rakesh Sinha and Jayant Sinha. You know, they will quote also Justice J.S. Verma, widely respected by your party as well, who in his Supreme Court order called Hindutva a way of life. So I think the argument being made here is, don't get literal about the RSS chief's remark. How do you respond to that, Mr. Tharoor?
Well, look, I mean, I think Jayant Sinha has taken the conversation from the gutter to the hole in the ground through which Alice disappeared into Wonderland. Where in Alice in Wonderland they say, a word is precisely what I say it means. So Jayant Sinha takes the word Hindu, which is commonly understood to refer to the practitioners of the Hindu faith, and says it doesn't mean that at all. Well, if it doesn't mean that, 90% of the people don't understand what Mr. Bhagwat means.
They're both saying it means a cultural identity. They're saying it means a larger cultural, a geo-cultural identity, as Rakesh Sinha, Professor Sinha calls it.
Well, and I see this is exactly why I said that Shashi has a habit of taking this discussion into a level that he should not. Because he is deliberately misinterpreting this word to mean religion when it does not mean
religion. Your question, Rakesh Sinha's question to Shashi Tharoor.
My question, Mr. Tharoor, my question.
I'm sorry.
In India, before becoming a modern nation state, what was its status? And I am quoting Ravindra Kumar, Professor Rajni Kothari. They also call that India is the only nation in the world which is co-traditional.
Okay, we have Ashish Nandi sitting here. Shashi, I'll come to you in just a moment. Professor Nandi, is this a debate about the etymology of the word Hindu in Hindustan, or is this a political debate? Are we conflating the cultural discourse around ये जो एक शब्द है ये क्या represent करता है, or is there something else going on here that we are missing?
I mean, this is a political debate. No, there is no doubt about it, because etymologically, India and Hindu is the same thing.
Etymologically, it is. But the Hindu in India did not mean Hinduism.
But India always. India, great civilizations, always has number of names. We were also Jambudip, we were Bharatvarsha, Bharat, Hindustan, Al-Hind, we were all this. We are not concerned with this. I mean, there is no point in raising these issues now.
Yes.
When you say, I mean, this question was raised, why Indonesian Muslims do not feel offended if they call them Hindu, that's because nobody points out to them constantly that it should be important for you to declare yourself Hindu, that we are part of the Hindu civilization. They do not say that. We have introduced this sensitivity. Now this statement will immediately arouse the defensiveness of minority communities. Everybody will feel threatened.
Everybody will feel threatened by this statement?
Yes, absolutely.
Okay, I know both Jayant and Rakesh will want to respond to this. Shashi, I'm just going to let you complete your argument that Professor Nandi says at the heart of this is a political debate. Because, you know, historians can go on arguing about the etymology of a word. Also, the meanings of word changes over time. So, what Hindustani came to mean, for example, under the Mughal Empire was not possibly how the word was coined to begin with. Shashi.
Exactly. I mean, to begin with, frankly, and as a believing Hindu, I acknowledge that the Hindus didn't have a term for self-definition. The word Hindu was imported from outside. Yes. Our religion was at best, if you want, Sanatan Dharma, yes, or various forms of worshipping specific gods and divinities.
Yes.
But anyway, that's neither here nor there. I'm not interested in the etymological discussion. I'm interested in the political one, which is when you make a statement like that, you are sending a signal in our plural civilization, and you are saying that people who call themselves Hindus have a privileged position in this society. That is the problem and the danger with such a statement. Even with Professor Sinha's argument about geo-cultural identity and so on,
yes,
the fact is culture is a contested space in any society. There may be certain cultural symbols from Hinduism that other communities are willing to appropriate.
Yes.
For example, the lamp is often lit in Kerala by all communities.
Yes.
But there are Muslims who refuse to light the lamp at secular functions, saying it's a devotional practice. Now, we have to respect their right to dissent from that aspect of our culture.
Okay, Professor Rakesh,
you cannot take one aspect of our culture as the norm and then impose it on those
Mr. Tharoor, I don't want to use the superficial.
And that's why Jayant Sinha's argument is so
okay, Professor Rakesh Sinha has a question for you, and then Jayant.
You are just talking of a lamp. The second oldest mosque in the world, Cheraman Mosque, is in Kerala in your own state, where lamp is there is a lamp. So it is not the question. Our tradition is inclusive, and Hindu term Mohan Bhagwat ji using it is inclusive. There is an erosion of the. There is an erosion of
Professor Saab, couldn't he have said "Hum sab"? If he had said "Hum sab Bharatiya hain," if he had said "Hum sab Bharatiya hain," the song goes from school, no one would have objected. Because Bharatiya or Indian is not associated with one faith.
Barkha ji, he has not negated that you can't call yourself Indian or Bharatiya. Just RSS says that Bharatiya and the Hindu words are synonym to each other. And why you hate Hindu to be called Hindu? Why? What is the reason? Tomorrow. Let me finish.
Common sense. We are living in 2015.
Let me finish. Bharat, the word Bharat, the name Bharat originated from the Kanva Rishi ashram. The Kanva Rishi was Hindu Rishi, and there was a Bharat, the boy was born out of Sakuntala. Then tomorrow someone says that Bharat is a religious term.
I'll get Professor Nandi to respond to that, but let me...
Then how many years will
Jensen,
I'm very
You're
glad.
talking like grammarian.
Sorry, what do you say, Professor?
He's talking like grammarian. I mean, this is
not a grammar debate.
I agree with that.
I mean, first of all,
I agree with Professor Nandi.
let me ask you this question.
Surely.
I can understand if some Muslim leader said this, that in one sense we are Hindu Muslims. Only 10 years ago, a person sitting in Pakistan in response to a question by India today said, we are not Arab Muslims, we are Hindu Muslims.
Yeah.
But he can say that and get away with it. Even in Pakistan, I am sure nobody was offended by that. But in India, if you say, if Mohan Bhagwat says, on being the head of the RSS, it is like Ku Klux Klan declaring America to be a white country and everybody who stays in America is white.
You are comparing a very wrong comparison.
Your
basic presumption is wrong. India is a multicultural land, diversity.
Professor Jensen.
I think Barkha was exactly right, and I am very glad that my good friend Shashi has conceded the point, which is that this is not about labels, this is not about the etymology of the word. And as I said right at the outset, there are far more serious things we need to discuss, which is what is the culture of India. Are we?
No, but are you
I'm sorry. Let me finish, Barkha. Barkha, let me finish.
Barkha, let me say. I am saying
whatever word.
Hindustani allows for space for other cultures.
Absolutely, and whatever I'm saying, you can use any term that you want. Don't interrupt. It frankly doesn't matter what label you use. No, I'm sorry. Let me finish, Shashi. What I'm saying is the labels actually at some level do not matter. We can sit here and get all whipped up in a frenzy and politicize it. But that is precisely what I call the gutter level discussion and discourse that we often have on TV.
Please answer my question.
No, there is a much deeper question at hand, which is what we should discuss.
What is the deeper question?
Which is, do we have a unifying culture in India or not?
Okay, Shashi Tharoor, answer that question. Okay, do we have a unifying...
And don't the Americans have a unifying culture? Don't the French have a unifying culture? Don't the British have a unifying culture? Why can't India have a unifying culture?
Okay,
call it whatever you want.
This is an interesting question.
This is a very valuable discussion.
Yes, it is.
Because in fact, the difference between that unifying culture in America, where they have a melting pot, and the lack of that kind of culture in India, where we are a thali, where we are a bowl, we are a dish with number of bowls on it.
See, Shashi has a habit of playing with words.
Which don't necessarily mix with the
melting pot.
Okay, let me ask Shashi a question. Shashi, I think the American parallel
to a taste in your mouth. Shashi, let me say, we have a pluralist society where people are free to be Muslim or Hindu or Christian.
I was just going to ask you slightly,
or Sikh or any sect thereof.
Okay, but just to take Jayant's argument further, Shashi Tharoor, I think what he's saying is that the Americans, for example, can have, and in their politics as well, an overtly Christian culture. So if they can have a larger, wider, defining cultural narrative without foisting it on other people, why can't India? I don't necessarily agree with him. I'm saying that's the question he's placing there. Shashi.
Because we have a different
Shashi against culture.
We've evolved over several thousand years. We have evolved over several thousand years. The Americans have only had 200 or 300. I suspect in 2,000 years they'll be more like us in their acceptance of greater diversity.
Good point. They're not as old as
the Germans, the European societies, the Germans and other, the Germans, 50 years ago a German was somebody who was white,
analogies
Christian,
are wrong.
and
the
spoke
Chinese
German.
have an equally
Today there are
ancient
German
civilization
citizens who are not
and they have a unifying culture.
Mr. Bhagwat spoke about the
Chinese?
English. There are people now who are brown skinned and whose mother tongue is Punjabi and who live in England but are British and not English. So the world is becoming a more complex and diverse place. We have been there for several thousand years. We've had a civilization to which various religions, various ethnic groups have contributed. And that is why our pluralism is such a precious asset we must preserve and not threaten in the name of a Bhagwat-style uniformity.
Professor Nandi says that today, when you listen to the RSS chief, and if you're not Hindu, because aapne ek sawal rakha that do you feel insulted being called Hindu? I said no. But what about people who are not Hindu, who are born into another faith? Are we telling the people of India who are not Hindu, who consider themselves of some other religion, that you first have to stand up and be considered Hindu to belong to this country?
Mohan Bhagwat ji is not questioning the mode of worship. You can have a number of mode of worship in the country, number of communities and the culture, but the geocultural identity is Hindu.
So are they expected to say that?
You are free not to accept. Here there is a space, you are free not to accept. But here
when you say geocultural identity, when you say the geocultural identity is Hindu, what do you mean? Elaborate on that, sir. What do you mean geoculture? Because geographically, it only referred to a river. It didn't refer to a religion.
Right. In course of the civilizational process, what Mr. Tharoor says, it is our civilization of thousands of years old. I say this is the only country in the world which is a co-terminus with a civilization. So how to define this civilization in the nation?
Professor Nandi.
I cannot answer this question. This is an absurd discussion. Indian civilization stretches from South Vietnam to Asia Minor. If you look at anthropological work.
Yes.
Do you go and say this? Do you go and say this to the Indonesians or Vietnamese or Malaysians? You immediately create problems, political problems. We are having a political discussion, and then saying I meant it innocently. I was talking only of civilization things. I was only talking of cultural.
What do you think?
I think Professor Nandi is quite wrong.
Let me finish his comment. What do you think he meant? What for you did Bhagavad Ji's statement mean?
This is an old 19th century concept of nationality. Hindus constitute a nationality for India. This is the public religion of India, so to speak. Americans have this. This is what you probably meant. But India is not that kind of a country.
So let me please. Professor Sinha, no, please. You have to.
Okay, Jayant Sinha, and then Professor Sinha, then Shashi Tharoor, and I'm running out of time.
Yes. No, the tragic aspect of this whole discussion is that the folks who speak in this manner are unnecessarily polarizing India when we should be seeking to unify India.
Doesn't the comment in itself
Professor Nandi,
polarize?
no, not at all. It's only if you take it that way. This polarization lies in the eye of the beholder. If you want to polarize India, then you can use words like this, speak in inflammatory ways, and polarize India. On the other hand,
you don't think the comment in itself is potentially inflammatory?
Because if you read the words themselves, he says it, and then he very quickly goes into saying you can call it Bharatiyata, you can talk about all the unifying aspects, you can worship in any different way. But I think it's very important that we first and foremost be Indians, and we have unifying culture.
I'm just mentioning two books: Soul of India by Bipin Chandra Pal. Mr. Nandi must have read that book, and Mr. Tharoor also. And Maharshi Arvind, he also used the Hindu Rashtra. That doesn't mean that he was depriving Muslims and Christian and other religion from the Indian nationality.
Let me ask you a political question. Do you believe that at a time when the BJP ran its campaign saying development for all, this is our election campaign, do you believe this comment embarrasses the BJP politically?
No, it is not embarrassing.
You don't think it makes them look like a Hindu nationalist party?
RSS is not a new organization, and it does not make remarks because BJP is in power or not in the power. RSS has been since 1925. It has been pursuing its ideology and ideological campaign, and whether BJP in power or not in the power. And I think BJP people understand what Mohan Bhagwat ji says. It is those people who don't understand because they fear that Muslim will be threatened, Christian will be threatened. Of course, such kind of constructive discourse such kind of fear will go only when such kind of constructive debate takes place.
Shashi Tharoor, are you more convinced than you were in the beginning of this debate?
Not at all, because the entire strength of India, the greatest force for the unity of India is not uniformity as Jayant Sinha would have us believe. It is the opposite. It is the existence of diversity.
Words in my mouth because I never said anything of the sort.
That you can actually be a good Muslim, a good Keralite, and a good Indian all at the same time, because the Indian identity allows you to be culturally secure in various sub-identities. That is what makes India India, and it will be greatly dangerous if in trying to create some sort of cultural uniformity, we threaten the security people feel in their own identities while being part of the larger Indian identity.
Time just for last comments. And
I think this is precisely what I worry about, the polarization of people like Shashi Tharoor saying that we are insisting on uniformity. Hinduism has never insisted on uniformity. Our culture has never insisted on uniformity, and he's accusing us of that.
But if Hinduism is not a codified religion, which it is not,
I was mentioning it in a cultural sense.
Why do you need to assimilate other faiths into it? Whoever wants to be a Hindu will be
Hindu. We are not assimilating any faiths into it. We are just saying we as a nation, we as a civilization have to have some unifying narrative.
He said just before his death in an interview with the motherland, he said that nature abhors uniformity, and he attacked Europe for the uniformity. So Hinduism and Hindu concept accept the diversity. Without diversity, we can't exist.
Professor Nandi, do you accept this argument that culturally many countries have what Jayant Sinha in a sense says as a defining culture? and that culture will borrow
from
religion.
I'm not even saying defining culture. I said a unifying culture, which is different from a defining culture. There are certain elements of culture that unify.
You're saying Hinduism unifies this country?
I said we have to have a unifying culture. Bollywood may be a unifying culture. Cricket may be a unifying culture. There are many elements of culture. It's not at all necessary that religion should be the unifying culture.
Many of these ideas were taught to us when we were young, because I am much older than you. We were taught this in our schools, that England is a very unified country. We didn't know that Ireland had already separated. We knew, but we still believed it. That Scotland and Wales always had a nationalist movement and had been accused of sub-nationalism. And now Scotland is going to have a referendum whether it wants to be a different country or not. So this unity is only skin deep often. I don't take it much more seriously, but the nation state system, when it came, smothered this, and unfortunately our model of state increasingly is veering towards the Savarkarite model, which was that of a proper European nation state.
Last comment on Mohan Bhagwat's statement, Professor Nandi.
I think it is a colonial comment.
A colonial comment. A colonial comment. Okay.
It is the most modern concept, and he says
it's a modern statement, a colonial statement.
Hindu nation is an adjective, not an objective. We are using as an adjective of the nation state.
What if someone doesn't want to be defined by that
adjective? Free not to do so. Free not to do so.
Acharya J.B. Kripalani wrote a book, Minorities in India. And the same thing he argued there.
Okay, 15 seconds each to Shashi and Jayant, because I'm totally out of time. Shashi Tharoor, last comment.
Look, there are at least 250 million Indians who are proud to be Indian but do not consider themselves Hindu. I do not want them to be excluded from the idea of India, from the vision of India that I would work to fight for and defend. I'm prepared to make common ground with Jayant on the concept of diversity, but not under a label that only some can lay full claim to. Everybody must have equal rights, being Indian to being Bharatiya.
Sashi's points are invariably about labels and about names, and I said right at the outset that is not the purpose of this discussion if you want to have a serious discussion. The serious discussion we need to have is what binds us together as a nation and as a culture, and there are many things that do, and they can be as simple as Bollywood and as simple as cricket. What's wrong with that? The Americans have it, the British have it, the British love soccer.
One sentence.
Yes, one sentence.
For centuries, other religions and cultures have existed in India in dialogue with Hinduism and enriched themselves and enriched Hinduism too. If you go on using this kind of expressions in public sphere, rub that thing in,
so you're
then you will see in all communities what you have already seen among Sikhs and Jains.
We leave it there. That's an ominous note to end on. Professor Rakesh Sinha, Professor Ashish Nandi, Jayant Sinha, Shashi Tharoor. Sorry, the time is up. But syncretism, I think, of our civilization is something that we should all be proud of. How to find, to borrow that old school cliche, unity in diversity. That's it on The Buck Stops here. Thanks for watching. Good night.